Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. This one is more so of just a fun one. I wanted to compile the data of all active matches played and try and come up with a way to calculate how many players and or characters are currently playing rated PvP in World of Warcraft for Season 2 of The War Within. Remember that this data is likely inaccurate. My method of calculating it is definitely not 100% on point, and it's mostly just due to the limitations of access to that data. But I wanted to do the best that I could to try and draw up some type of raw number that's probably going to range, between minus 20 or maybe plus 20%. As far as overall participation, because I wanted to bring to note like a trend here. Okay, so I've got the Steam charts for Marvel Rivals, which does actually track the active numbers of daily users. So in the last 24 hours, it had about an 80,000 player peak, currently at 62,000. So we're going to be taking this 24-hour benchmark as a way of measuring this using the data available on Drustvar, which I will have linked in the description down below. But you can see roughly 5 months ago, this game peaked at 650,000 players, and now it has dropped down to currently 62,000 or an 80,000 on an average. And you can see that over time, this graph peaks when they likely do content updates, new characters, maybe a new map or something like that. But overall, it's trending down. And this is obviously, I think, a very similar trend to what we would expect for World of Warcraft, right? An expansion comes out, all-time high peak, starts to fall down, content update, probably depends on how good the update is, and then continues down, content update, continues down, content update, continues down. Just to showcase that, we are in a different era of gaming. I think that this is likely attributed to a couple of things. I think our attention spans are being shortened by social media apps that have evolved and been created to harvest our attention, really. The other one is hyper optimization. We're really good at getting good at video games because these video games have been out for so long. And once a game becomes hyper optimized, where you know the matchup before the game even plays out, it gets predictable. It gets boring. And I think that's why we see this drop in participation in all games, right? And this is a game that people were saying is going to destroy Overwatch. It's it's simple, it's easy to understand. It hits all of those benchmarks that WoW PvP gets criticized for, and it is still in this very similar type of trend line going down as far as content is concerned. So that being said, Marvel Rivals here, 80,000 is the 24 peak for currently. I think it's a fair assessment because, War Within came out how many months ago, right? Or the most recent patch even, how many months ago? So I think it's going to be a more even comparison. When we look at the Drustvar leaderboard, we can see that there was 2,400 games of 2v2 played in the last 24 hours. So what I did was I took that as 4 characters per match, right? Because it's 2 versus 2. And then I multiplied it by the numbers of games played to calculate the number of characters that had played a 2v2 match. There's obviously going to be some overlap. I don't know how much overlap. I can't possibly calculate that. That data is not public. But that's basically how I made that calculation to try and figure this out. In 3v3, we had 3,220 games played in the last 24 hours. In RBGs, which is sadly the lowest participated bracket, likely again because it takes the most amount of organization to be able to actually do. You need 20 players. Only 121 games played. In Solo Shuffle, we had 21,658 rounds played, but I calculated it based on lobbies, right? Because obviously it's 6 players per lobby. It's not 6 players times 6 per rounds. Otherwise, I'd be getting some ridiculously high number. So I took the lobbies played, which is 6 players, 6 characters, and then multiplied that out for the last 24 hours to see that this many characters had been playing it out. And then Battleground Blitz had 818 games played in the last 24 hours. In the US region, we'll also be looking at the European region, calculating and adding these all up. And Blitz accounts for 16 players. So 818 times 16, and take that into account. In EU, we honestly saw very similar numbers. 2v2 coming in at 2,344 games played in the last 24 hours. 3 versus 3, 2,749 games played in the last 24 hours. RBGs, only 14. So EU RBGs, if you like RBGs over there, I'm sorry, bro, but it's gone. And remember, I multiplied this out by 20 because it's 20 players per RBG. In Solo Shuffle, we had 2,200 or 22,000 rounds with 3,676 lobbies played. And in Battleground Blitz, we had 760 Blitz games played in the last 24 hours, which then again we multiplied out by 16. And I did all of the calculations and I've added them all up. This means that in North America, there was 13,000 characters that played in the last 24 hours, 21,000 solo shuffle characters, 2,400 rated BG characters, 19,000, which is honestly a surprising number for 3v3, because I think for a lot of players, they consider this bracket to be, the most criticized, but it's actually the second highest as far as characters participated. 9,636 for 2v2, bringing the North American rated PvP participation, how many characters have played some sort of rated PvP match in the last 24 hours, to 66,124. Remember Marvel Rivals? 62,462. It's very similar. Obviously, this is going to be, it's going to be active players, so this number can vary. But that's only that region. In EU, similar numbers: 12,160 in Blitz, 22,056 in Solo Shuffle, only 280 though in rated BGs, 16,494 in 3v3, and 9,376 in 2v2, bringing the EU total for rated PvP matches played by characters in the last 24 hours to 60,366, which brings the combined total to 126,490, which is at its lowest point. I kind of want to take this, honestly, as like a time chamber moment and save these numbers because this is like, people are saying this is the all-time lowest point as far as rated PvP participation. Remember, this is only ranked PvP. This does not include random BGs, epic BGs, world PvP, anything like that. It doesn't include that data. That data is likely much larger than this because the majority of players who play casually. This is like top percentage players are going to be participated in this mode, right? So take that into account. It doesn't include the casual play. But I just wanted to record this number, have this number here, even if it's not 100% accurate for active users. There is some overlap, right? This is only characters, so like one character could account for how many of these Blitz matches, right, in a day, realistically. Like how many people play a Blitz in a day? How many blitzes do they play in a day? Like maybe 5. So the threshold of this could vary. It could obviously vary. This was just the best that I could do. Looking at this, I wanted to just document it, and then we can kind of keep a log of it going into the future, and we can see what happens when the patch comes out, and then look at these numbers and see how much they've shifted, so we can see whether it's grown or shrunk, because this is the only way that we can really gather this data, right? And I just want to kind of curate this, have it recorded, have it available. But my point is that 126,500 characters combined total participated in rated PvP, and Marvel Rivals is at 80,000 in its 24-hour peak. So most games are like this. Not all games are like this. Counter-Strike 2 is the only one that I've been able to find. If you guys find one that isn't like that over its entire journey, Counter-Strike 2 is actually from bottom left to top right, which is a growing game, although it has had periods of decline or stagnation. Ultimately, over this many years, it has managed to increase and grow. So I think when considering like design decisions for the game, we need to be smart and actually look at games that have healthy margins, and ideally look at periods of time where that growth is most optimized to see what is it exactly that this game did during this time, in order to see this return to growth pattern towards the top right, and not just make assumptions that there's a magical casual audience, and if you somehow make the perfect casual game, that it will create infinite growth, right? For the most part, I think games like that, like Fall Guys as an example, is like the best uber casual game of all time, right? Like it's an uber game of all time. This is what I've seen happen to uber casual games of all time. They have a hype phase where people are playing, they're having a great time, and then just nothing. It's the game you buy, you play one time, and then never play again. I don't think designing a game that's intended to be a consistent competitive format over a long period of time using design intentions that this style of game is using is going to be optimal for what you're trying to create, right? We need to be looking at the metrics for games that are able to achieve that are able to go into that direction. I just thought it was an interesting discussion point to bring up. Look at the numbers. Wasn't trying to bring anybody down. Honestly, I think that if this is like the all-time low, most dead point or whatever for the game, that it's not that bad. Because like I said, I'm going to look at these numbers when Midnight comes out. We're going to revisit this thing. Or we're going to go in a time chamber and see like the difference between hype phase, non-hype phase, the same way that something like the Marvel Rivals graph is, and we're going to have all that data. We're going to be able to look at it, even if this isn't 100% accurate of the current active users. It'll be an equal comparison to the numbers in the future, so we'll actually have some sort of dynamic control there. And I just did my best, just to kind of for fun video to show this. We've obviously been talking about the problems facing WoW PvP, the adjustments that I would like to be seen made to it. And honestly, Marvel Rivals is having the same issues related to MMR and their rankings. Although it's kind of the inverse, right? Where they push lower ranked players higher just over time, which is honestly kind of how Battleground Blitz's MMR is at the moment, where you just kind of get pushed up the more that you play. And players are raising that as a major criticism. And that's the main reason that they're stopping, right? From playing the game. So following those trends, just because, oh my God, it had the highest peak ever of any game, and that means we should copy everything they did. It's obviously right. You need to look at the long term. Everybody is so short-sighted. They don't notice the trends. They don't notice the cycles. They're so short-sighted. You need to look at more than just hitting a peak like this. Like, this is like, how much of this is people were fed up of Overwatch? How much of this is Marvel Rivals Avengers universe is massive and has the biggest fan base of all time, right? Like, how many things are going in a perfect storm to create this opportunity over time, as opposed to something like CS2, which is very healthy over the long term. Bottom left, top right. You know, it has its moments, downturns, whatever, but it's bottom left to top right. Like, this is a healthy game. And one of the few. Every game I see is mostly hype, fall off, and then I see games being modeled and designed around these games that go hype, fall off, because they're zooming in on the hype moment and then ignoring what happens after the fact. So for me, that's a big deal. I just wanted to make a video to talk about it. It's a fun video. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion here. In it, I'm still having fun playing the game, and that's what I would say to you as well, is that if you're having fun with it, play it and don't care that it's not the bottom popular thing to do or whatever. And if you're not having fun with it, take a break, because I almost guarantee the next time that you come back, you're gonna feel refreshed, and you're gonna enjoy it, because you may have burned out. Again, hyper optimization. You might have just gotten into a spot where you feel like you understand where your class is disadvantaged, and you get frustrated by it, and you've just hit the point of hyper optimization. Maybe your attention span's also a little bit slow or low, and no, it's not meant to be a personal attack. My attention span has also been lowered from social media usage, so you might not just be getting those dopamine hits that you used to get. So by taking a break, you're going to reset those, and you're going to be able to recharge them and come back into it stronger in the future. Those are my thoughts. It's definitely a lot better than just lingering on forums or videos leaving negative comments, because I guarantee the same thing is now happening to Marvel Rivals, even despite it being hailed as the glorious savior of the team shooter genre, and that it was replacing Overwatch. It was over, and here we are 6 months later, right? And this just continually happens. How do we combat it? I don't know. Our attention spans are just going to get lower over time. Social media is going to be more hyper optimized to be able to steal our attention. We're just going to get better at solving these games, right? And as soon as they become solved, Blizzard's only option is rebalancing, right? Which they've adjusted, and they do a lot more frequently than they've done in any other expansions, where they try and readjust the balance week to week or 2 weeks to weeks. But they also need to consider developing the next patch. So we're in a point like now where they're not doing that week to week change, because they're looking at the next major patch, which is obviously should be their focus, because no matter what they do right now, I don't think it's bringing these numbers up in the short term. But if they can nail the next major patch, then they hit a really high peak that hopefully isn't going to trail off with the current pattern that we've got. Now, I think changes to MMR, changes to the ranked structure could help deviate this and keep some retention. But I don't know ultimately how you can reverse that curve, because that curve it's like magic, bro. It's like magic. No, it's very few games that are actually achieving it. Very, very few. But other than that, thank you guys for tuning into the discussion, the ramble, and looking at some of the numbers. And I will see you in the next one.